And joining us now to talk leadership for the 5th of 5 appearances here on the agenda. He's been here all week. Mike Harris, the 22nd Premier of Ontario. He was Premier from 1995 to 2002 and an MPP in the legislature for almost 20 years. I want to talk today about your legacy, essentially, the legacy of leadership that you left behind. On Monday, you mentioned that one of the ways your father led was to instill in you a sense of fear. A sense of I didn't want to disappoint my dad, and a sense of woe betide you if you do. And I wonder how much of that was in you when you tried to lead this province for the 7 years that you did.
I think very little. I mean, one of the things I learned the early years with my father, who was a wonderful man, that side of him was to me not the best side, and you learn that growing up, and you try to be a different kind of father, and you learn that with leaders. And if you look through history, you know, there are those who are able to lead by force. You know, we have great examples in history. We don't need to go into all of those today, but to me, truly great leaders lead by example. Tracy, who's a motivational speaker, I think he said that you know, a great leader motivates ordinary people to do extraordinary things, and I think all those things are right. But that was certainly not. I think it appeared that way, and I know some have said that. But I have to tell you that the caucus was united, you know, by and large throughout. Even Billy Murdoch, I used to have to call from time to time. They understood the agenda, they understood what we were doing, we were a team, we evolved goals together, and we set them. The difference was this: I didn't back down. I was not going to be bullied. And many have tried to bully me into doing things. They say, we'll shame you, we'll do this, we'll do that, you know, we'll you know, call you names, we'll pick it, we'll throw things at you, we'll do all those things. And I was not going to be bullied.
Why not? Why wouldn't you back down? Because most premiers will want to put some water in their wine to make the demonstrators go away.
Well,
why didn't you?
Because I think the duly elected representatives of the province are supposed to make the decisions, supposed to run the province, not the unions. They were basically the ones that were picketing and demonstrating.
Yeah, but...
And they are not, listen.
But to do a gimme doesn't mean that they're running the show.
No,
it means you're finding a compromise.
No, I mean, if there is a compromise that makes sense and doesn't violate the principles, then fine. And we were able to work cooperatively with a lot of, you know, I mean, the construction trades I worked very cooperatively with. We used to play golf with one of them from time to time, and as long as it was a cooperation thing, but you know, with some of the unions, it was fundamentally against the principle of outsourcing and getting, if the taxpayers could get a better deal, better service, better quality here, that's our job to do it. That's not the union's job. Their union is to hang on to the monopoly. And in the case of the teachers' unions, they wanted 100% control of education. They didn't pay for it. The taxpayers were paying for it. The taxpayers are elected people to, you know, to help pay for it. And I can tell you this, that if you look back, in everything that I did, as a teacher, as a trustee, as an MPP, as a premier, I put students first. I put quality education and students first. The teachers' union job is to represent the teacher. Sometimes they'll put students first, but if there is a conflict there, their job is to represent the teacher. That, to me, and that bullying attempt on their part, and it was demonstrated again just recently, you know, with Nipissing universities, that is, you can't accept that. And you can't accept it, in my view, and sleep at night and say, I'm a leader and I'm doing my job.
But some people thought that you were a successful premier insofar as you won back-to-back majorities, because not only did you know what you wanted to do, but because you knew who your enemy was and you vilified your enemies. And it made it easier for you, and it frankly galvanized your caucus more, to identify an enemy and then go take them on. Well, and that's what happened with public servants and with teachers, right, and maybe some nurses, and you know, the list may go on.
Well, I did take them on. If I thought they were unfairly, you know, trying to bully me, I did take them on. And I guess maybe other leaders in the past didn't. And maybe they just compromised, and maybe it was a wishy-washy middle, and maybe that works for some time. In my view, it is not the sign of leadership. I tell you that, I mean, one thing I did do, And I think Tom Peters says that excellence is setting the agenda. I always remember this. Excellence is setting the agenda.
The guy who wrote the book, In Search of Excellence.
That's right. And I think being a leader and a good leader is setting the agenda. We set the agenda. We set the agenda with the Common Sense Revolution. We did it with a lot of consultation. We did it as a team. It wasn't one man setting the agenda, but setting the agenda. And once the agenda is set, once it's agreed on, once it's voted on, once you're elected, you got to implement the agenda.
That's different. No, I think it's fair to say most premiers in Ontario history, and there have been others who've won elections as well, obviously, saw their role as not necessarily coming to office with an agenda that we are going to get through come hell or high water, but they saw competing interests in society, and they felt it was their job to broker, to find the compromise, to find the solution among those competing interests. I don't think you saw your job that way.
I think many times it is, but there are certain principles that you have to stick to. And yes, we made lots of compromises. We worked with lots of groups. I mean, it will shock people to know that we settled more native land claims during my term in that office than any other premier before me.
No one will remember that.
No one will
They'll remember the
that.
one dead Indian.
Yeah, right, yeah, that's
Ipperwash.
right. And for some strange reason, because people have said it a million times, they think I actually had something to do with it, which is totally false. Secondly, they will not understand, Monty Hummel will, who's head of the World Wildlife Fund.
Lands for Life.
Yeah, Lands for Life. We set aside more parks, more protected areas than any other premier in history and since. And the World Wildlife Fund, and Monty Hummel still gives me credit for that. But that's counterintuitive to those that want to vilify me.
Doesn't fit the story.
Right? It doesn't fit the story or the image they want to have
But you earned the story.
That,
You
right.
did earn the brand, right? You did earn the brand by getting into some very high-profile knockdown dragamouts with some, people in the past who've been fairly powerful.
I've earned lots of brands, and is the guy who did what he said he'd do. I thought that's what we were supposed to do. But was I tough? I suppose I was if it came to be bullying around and doing what we said, that we would do. And first choice is always do it cooperatively and do it with people and do it with various groups. And I would say 99% of the time we were able to do that. Occasionally we weren't.
This quote has been attributed to you. I don't know if you actually said it, so let me find out. By the time we're done, there won't be one blade of grass on the South Lawn at Queen's Park that hasn't been trampled on by some demonstrator. Did you say that?
I did. And it was probably written for me, but I think we had a sense that some of the changes we were going to make would challenge the status quo in some areas.
Did you see it as a badge of honor?
Not necessarily, but what was important was we said this has to be done. The public agreed, and we said no matter how hard they protest, we promise you we'd do this, and we're going to do it.
Now, your leadership style definitely begat a kind of divisiveness that we have not seen in this province. For good or for ill. Obviously your supporters thought it was long overdue. I think the majority of the people in the province who did not vote for you, as always happens, didn't think it was a great thing. Why, I remember Sid Ryan being in here saying, I don't believe it. We had 150,000 people out in the streets for days of action, and this guy's not backing down. Why didn't you want to put just a little bit of water in the wine just to make things a little more peaceful and a little less divisive?
Well, I could argue that we probably did put a little water in the wine, but it wasn't enough for them. And it really came down to, who's going to run the hospital, Sid Ryan and his union? Or are we going to put patients first? And if we can find a way to save a few bucks to have a contractor come and sweep the halls, and we can hire one more nurse, or we can get one more piece of equipment in there, what's in the best interest of patients and whatnot? I understand what's in the best interest of CUPE and Sid Ryan's union and that local. It's keeping everybody employed at the highest possible salary. I get that. But that wasn't my job.
Okay, but does your style of leadership burn out too fast? We talked about the fact that, a year into your second term, a lot of the wind was out of your sails. You were out of gas. It's one thing to be a revolutionary. It's another thing to actually have to keep the revolution going forever, right? Is it hard to keep the revolution going forever?
Well, I don't think you need a revolution all the time. I think you have to make a transition then into, what's next? What do you have to do? And I without being critical, I think I had successors who wanted to be loved by everybody. So I'm going to make peace with the teachers. I'm not Mike Harris, I heard them say. I'm not that. I'm not. No, come on. We're and I think Small C conservative principles. Stick to them. I think it'll win the day in every part of this country and in every part of Ontario.
In my experience, it seems there's been two kinds of leaders who become prime minister or premier. There are the transactional ones and the transformational ones. I don't think there's much doubt about the fact that you were a transformational one. For good or ill, people will have their different opinions on it. When you got the job, did you know that's what you wanted to be?
Well, I didn't phrase it in my mind that way, but clearly, yes. Clearly, I felt there was transactional things that had to be done.
Transformational things.
Transformational things, sorry. And I was not a transactional premier. I didn't enjoy managing. I didn't as much as making change, if you like, and was change oriented. So if you wanted a premier who was just, going to manage things as they came along, keep everybody happy, and here's this, well, let's have a team of people come to a consensus on it, and isn't that nice? That's a different leader. I want to move on and do something else that's more interesting to me, more challenging to me, where I can use my skill set, if you like, and whatnot. So it's fair to say that and the trappings of office didn't appeal to me. And I was always astounded. I'd go on these Team Canada trips with Jean Chrétien, and to his credit, he loved it. He loved meeting with queens and kings and state leaders and the state dinners and everything else. I hated them. I thought they were boring. And so that side of being premier was not for me. Rolling up my sleeves, building this hospital, making this decision, getting this problem fixed, that was for me.
Pierre Trudeau was a transformational rather than transactional leader. Did you feel you had something in common with him?
Well, in this sense, I mean, Trudeau's the reason I joined. I voted for him first time, by the way.
68.
In '68, and then I joined the Conservative Party because of him, because I didn't think his vision of a just society fit my vision of a just society, and I felt he was abandoning those principles I learned from my dad. These small C conservative initiative, work ethic, all of these things. But he was a leader, and he had a vision, and his just society, we could understand it. We'd, 50 years from now, we'd all be bilingual and peaceful all across the country. That French spoken in Edmonton, would be just as acceptable as English in Chicoutimi. Neither one of those were true, by the way, in either jurisdiction. But he had a vision, and he led that way, and he was not swayed from it, and that he was a leader, and I admired him for that.
What other Canadian leader do you see parallels with in terms of your own leadership style?
Well, in a way, I don't think Chrétien had the same vision that Trudeau had, but Chrétien was a leader too in this. Leaders have to make decisions and be decisive. You consult as widely as you can, but you can't keep putting off decisions, in my view. I mean, you might get away with a period of time. I know many accuse Bill Davis. He used to take pride. If I wait long enough, the problem will go away. He talks about that.
Never put off till tomorrow, which you can avoid doing
which
altogether.
Which you can avoid today. But about it, right. But Davis did, and he used to, laugh at that. But Davis did make some pretty decisive decisions.
He did.
And so did Chrétien. I mean, if you look at the Liberal Party, and I know Paul Martin's got a lot of credit, and I like Paul Martin, for balancing the books and whatnot. Hindsight tells me Chrétien made the tough decisions, and Martin carried them out. Because when Martin had the opportunity as leader, I didn't see that same decisiveness. I saw Newfoundland wants this, you can have it. You want this, you can have it. I saw big spending say yes to everybody. But Chrétien was tough. I had to deal with him. And he said, that's it, So that side of me, I think, once the decision's made, you're a leader, and that's it. Perhaps Chrétien and I were very similar. We also came from, from nowhere. We came from little towns, and we were not part of the establishment.
Okay, if leadership is about making decisions, then let's finish off on this.
Okay.
Best decision you ever made in public life?
Well, I maybe the best two were getting in and getting out. It's been getting Tom Long and Leslie Noble together, who fought like cats and dogs, by the way.
I mean a policy. You look back and you made it.
No, but getting
Okay, the right people I get.
The right people. Those were important. Those were important and criticized, by the way. When I picked them to run the campaign, all the elites said they've never run a campaign. They're no good. You know, what a mistake. So that I don't want to point at anyone. There were a lot of decisions that we made, but they all followed a compass, and sticking to that compass and bringing that philosophy to everything, so that I was very predictable. If something was going to happen over here, a new event come around, it was pretty predictable how I was going to react, because they knew how I thought and they knew what I stood for and what I believed in. I believe in freedom. I mean, I follow that now with the Fraser Institute and competition and transparency and all those things. So maybe it's just sticking to that compass and having the courage to do that.
How about the one decision today you wish you could take back?
No, you know, I never go there.
You're not going to play with me on this, are you?
I'm not. No, I won't. I don't play that game, and I don't go there. I mean, there are many decisions that in hindsight, if I'd have had more time, all that. I mean, I used to be criticized. We'd bring in a bill, and then a month later, they'd say he's amending it already. Yeah, but if I'd have waited till it was perfect, I'd have never got the bill introduced. You know, I was flexible. You know, one of the key lines in the Common Sense Revolution is, here's what we believe in. Here's where we want to go. Here's this place. Here's where we are. Here's where we want to be. If you got a better way to get there, if you got a better idea, we'll adopt it. I still believe that. There were probably lots of easier ways we could have done things in hindsight. But I'm pretty proud of the record and the transformation that we made in Ontario. I think it's a much better province because of it.
Mr. Harris, we've very much appreciated having you here all 5 days this week to explore the issues of leadership and your time in public life. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. Been a fun week.